how can you tell a stand of hardwoods if the acorns, wow, a deer like this one more than the other ones? And I remember I was scouting years ago. We're in Arkansas, and I run into a little store, and a guy had about 170-inch deer. This was 25 years ago. And I was like, he said, I killed under an acorn tree. I said, was anything different about that acorn tree? And he said, that was the tallest tree in that stand. He said, I always go in there and I look for the tallest tree. What do you think about it? Why is it the tallest tree? He's probably getting more sunlight. It's up a higher. You know, that's just me putting that together. Why does that make sense? You know, a big open-grown tree, you know, it's getting a lot of sunlight. You know, a lot of times you got a good thicket around it. Them are super good trees around a pasture or something. So, you know, just sort of be open-minded, like, why is that like that? Why is that deer doing this? Why is it feeding on this species or this type thing? You know, I think if you know, there's no right or wrong answer. But when you start putting enough of that in your mind and you're thinking, it all comes back down to confidence.
Jeremy and Daniel, appreciate y'all letting us come over here and do this, man. I'm excited to talk to y'all again.
Same here. I like talking hunting.
Yeah, anytime. Over here in beautiful Mississippi, drove over to interview guys. Jeremy, you were the very first video podcast we ever did, actually.
Okay, that one that was interesting.
Yeah, well, we had you on a video podcast. It was just you the first time we
okay.
you.
Okay, I remember that.
And we didn't have the right equipment at the time. And so the audio version's like an hour and a half long, but the video version's like 20 minutes because all our cameras died. And so we just put it on YouTube. We're like, we'll see how it does. And then that was, I don't know, a couple years ago.
Almost 3 years ago.
And then Daniel, we've had you on by yourself one time, remote, and then we had you on a big round table. But ever since then, we're like, I want to get just the two of them on at the same time and just pick y'all's brains. I thought it'd be fun. So finally making it happen.
Yeah.
Jacob, how
I'm
you
excited.
doing?
Oh, doing well. We were talking about hunts and everything. Kind of what y'all have planned for this fall. One thing I want to get into with both you guys. First off, well, Jeremy, we're at your house right now. There's so much antler in the room that we're filming in, which the room's a third of the house probably. Antlers everywhere. And one thing that I wanted to kind of get you guys on, because both of y'all are killers, but we have a wide age demographic. I'll say what that might be mean, not the Daniel.
No, I mean it's fine.
There's a generational difference between you two. Okay, yeah. But y'all hunt together. Y'all hunt a little bit together, kind of hunt all over the place. But y'all both are extremely successful. And one thing I really wanted to talk about and get right into is the differences and similarities of how you two hunt. But before we get into that, I do want to know, how did y'all even meet? Like, y'all aren't related, but it's almost like a father-son or brother-brother duo here with you two, especially when y'all hang out with each other. So, Jeremy, how did you meet Daniel?
I've known Daniel since he was a little bitty thing. I knew his dad. His dad hunted with me when we had the show on Outdoor Channel time or two. So, like I said, he'd come along and had a buddy say, hey, you need to get on YouTube. And I thought, well, I ain't never watched YouTube. Well, we always had satellite, so we didn't watch YouTube. And then finally started doing it, and he was the main one that sort of helped me get on YouTube because he knew the technology side of it. I used to love to hunt and film, but I didn't care nothing about doing the computer side of it. So basically got a computer, and I gave it to him and said, hey, learn how to edit these shows. And we started hunting, and see how it sort of played out.
That's been 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
Dang, time flies, man.
Ooh. Time flies when you're hunting and having fun.
That is true.
That's right.
So you've known him for a long time. Now, when did you guys, and really Daniel, when did you start hunting maybe a little bit with Jeremy? Maybe not with him, but y'all started swapping info and kind of getting into it. Was it when you started the channel, Do It Yourself Hunter?
Well, to go back really before the channel, he asked me, what was it, 2016? Pretty sure it was 2016. If I wanted to go out west with him on elk hunt. He had drew a muzzleloader tag. He said, you want to go? Never been out, well, I'd been out west, but I hadn't been up in the mountains, you know. And he's like, you want to go? And he said, I'll take you out there and, you know, go let you see what it's like. So, yeah, 2016 was the first time we really went somewhere together, hunting. And after that was, I was 15 there. That's really when I started getting my bow hunting, really doing it more, because I killed my first deer when I was in 2013. So that was a couple of years I'd been bow hunting a little bit. Well, then I think it was that fall, he had told me and Daddy about a place in Arkansas. I said, y'all need to come try to hunt this. And I was really getting into bow hunting pretty good. And I was all gung-ho wanting to go bow hunting somewhere and go out of state hunting. So that right there just kind of how it got started and got to rolling. And in 2019 is when he asked me if I wanted to kind of help him with the video on and hunt a little bit, and it's just kind of built from there. But I'd say since about 2016, we've, just gotten closer with each other and hunting and everything else.
Okay. I do have to ask, Jeremy, what got under your skin to want to take a 15-year-old out on an elk hunt?
Well,
Was he tough at 15?
Well, like I said, he didn't get a tag because you had to draw the tags. Then he just sort of come along with me, but he was helping. We had a pea patch that summer, didn't we? And he was picking peas. His mom and dad come over there and had him helping us pick peas. And I thought, I'm gonna ask Daniel. I didn't think his mom and dad let him go no way because they held him pretty tight. And he called me back that night, and because I asked him, I said, ask you folks, can you go out there with us? He called me back that night. He said, they're gonna let me go. So, like I said, that was the first big start. The first hunt that filmed him on was a turkey hunt. And he come over, going to film me. We got to the woods, and I was like, get your gun. Because I knew I'd run a camera. Because like I said, I've been doing this since late 90. We had a show on Outdoor Channel in 2003. It was Do It Self Hunter. But it didn't work. It didn't work then because things changed a lot. Had young kids at the house. But I filmed him, and I think he seen, after we put the show together, he like, ooh, I like this. Because there's a knack to filming a hunt besides just doing a hunt. It's a different. You got, and he fell right into it. It's a lot of it's a setup. He was just sort of a natural. And y'all see his shows now. His editing is way better than mine because that's that younger generation that's more creative. Where mine's more just basic to the point and try to pass a little bit of knowledge along. Because I'm older, I got a little bit more knowledge between my ears than he does. But he's caught up and passed me though. So that's pretty much how the channel got started. But like I said, Do It Self Hunter, I think I copyrighted or trademarked that name in 2003. So it's been around a while.
Yeah, well, also, it's fun seeing y'all's dynamic, both on camera, but also knowing you two now for, 3-4 years maybe. And y'all's dynamic together is so fun. It's interesting just y'all's relationship with each other. But how does that translate to hunting and deer hunting specifically? Like, we've had each of y'all on kind of talking about a little bit of your own style of hunting, but maybe, Jeremy, you can kind of start. What do you feel like that maybe you do differently from Daniel, from like your hunting style, of your approach when it comes especially deer hunting, especially bow hunting as well as a traveling?
Well, like I said, I sort of grew up here. We got a big river bottom right here in front of my house. So I grew up hunting river bottoms, and that was my style of what I liked. And Daniel can, you look at him, he's 6 foot tall and weigh 130 pounds. That sucker, that mountain don't hurt him. Whereas the older I get, my style of, I want to stay to what's easier, works more to my body. Because like I said, I've done a lot of stuff. So I think that's a little bit of a difference in our style now is I go to places that I'm more used to, where he likes to go to a new spot and just explore. He puts boots on the ground, he'll walk 5 miles and find that spot A and spot B. Where I can look at a map and say, hey, I've killed deer and stuff like this before, and I go right in there. If I find good sign, I'm finna climb. Or you'll see his style. His is a little bit different. It was more knowledge over time. I know where I've killed deer before in this state, terrain, habitat. I can pretty much go to the same one and pretty much find it. My philosophy is when I go to a new place, I case it out. I ride all the way around it. I want to look at the access. I may find it on the map, but when I get there, I want to ride all the way around it. If I come on the weekend, I'm going to ride around it Saturday morning, see where everybody's at. And you can tell by where people are at is where deer's going to be at. You find it because they're going to have them pushed in certain spots. And that's what I look for. And that works for me pretty much anywhere I go in the country.
Daniel, what about you? Do you feel like anything that he said was, would you say, accurate, or is there something else, maybe a difference there that you feel?
No, I think I've got that explorer in me. I like seeing new stuff, and when I'm hunting, I know what I want to find, and I want to look fast through stuff. I mean, I got that young energy. I'm like, going through it. And I know what I want to find. And if I find it, I'm like, all right, let me see how many more I can find. Which he's at the point, he finds one, he's going to set on it and hunt it. But I'm like, all right, is there something else maybe around this corner that could be a little better? I just want to look, But, I mean, I've done got to the point where any kind of terrain, I've done adapted to it. I've done got, the last couple of years, I like hunting where I can see. Western stuff, wide open. I like that visual. And I think that's because I've been around in the South so much for so long, all my life. You can't see far. You've got to walk through it and find it. I think that's another reason I have the explorer type in me too, is because, in the South, everything's so thick, bottoms or hills, even the hills with the cutovers and the SMZs and stuff, you got to walk through them to find what you're looking for. And I think that's why I've started gravitating more to the Western stuff, where it's more open, where I can kind of watch and see, because I've done got to where I really like stalking deer. And I'm going to do more of that this year. Kind of got into it a little bit last year, but I'm going to do a little bit more of it this year than what I've done last year. So, yeah, he's right on that. I like to explore, walk, and find something.
Now, real quick, Daniel, when you say you kind of know what you're already looking for, give me a quick rundown of that. Like, what are you looking for?
To be honest with you, I've had a lot of people ask me that. I won't know it till I see it. There's a certain thing. I may could see the exact same thing here somewhere else that worked here, but there I'm like, that ain't gonna work. Everything's different. Different places are different. Because I've hunted, say I found a place, hunted here, had success, seen a lot of deer, I'll take that and go somewhere else, find that exact same thing, and sign everything, then I hunt it. I'm like, man, I just come from something exactly like this, and I ain't seeing that here. All right, so what's different? So, even though it's the exact same sign, different situations, deer act different. So, I have to actually see it to be able to say that's it.
The difference is interesting because it's almost like Daniel, a little more the adventure, wanderer, and Jeremy almost more of a specialist. I would almost say, like, you have something you really like. Specifically, we've talked about this before, but for new audience members, river bottoms, like specialized hunting river bottoms. And if you can find that in certain areas, you have extreme confidence going in there and killing a really good deer in that kind of habitat. And that's why I like the comparison between you two, because again, there's a lot there, not only based on personality types, but it's like if someone's coming from, like Dan, you mentioned, sometimes you find something down here that works for you, take it somewhere else, it may not work for the situation, even though you find a similar scenario. But if you can find a habitat type or terrain type that you're really comfortable hunting, if you can find that in other states or just other parts of your state, wherever you're going to go hunt, you're probably going to have some success because you know how to handle those situations. I think river bottoms is a great example. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Vegetation might be a little bit different. Axis, all that might be a little bit different. But again, it can lay out a lot the same. Probably the one thing I would want to kind of talk about with you guys on that the differences between you two is, Jeremy, with you being like more of a specialist specifically for whitetails, how, other than of course being raised and hunting these river bottoms, how have you taken that into other places and built more confidence hunting river bottoms, as in like doubling, tripling down on that specific habitat type instead of maybe wandering and trying out different areas, which I know you've done in the past, but what kind of always brings you back to the river bottoms?
Well, it's just, like I said, it's a style I like, and I can get away from people. I can use a boat, and I can get back. Like I said, I usually case the area out. Most time you get around a river bottom, and that river's going to cut access off unless somebody else has got a boat. So that's mainly why I key in on that more, is because I can get away from people. Well, if I get away from people, if there's mature deer there, they're in that same spot. To me, that's what 3-year-old deer and older, they're going to be away from pressure because they're going to die if they don't. Over just a matter of time, they're going to get shot. So it seems like I find them in these little odd pockets, and they may not be big. And while we like to, he's talking about open country out west, I like that same thing because you get on these river bottoms, you see river bottoms here, you'll have 10,000 acres of solid hardwood. Bottom, it's all the same. Well, you get out there, there's going to be little thickets, ag fields, little thickets, ag field. So you got them hemmed up a lot better. You know, because most of the time you're not hunting very far off that river. You know, that river's a natural barrier. They can cross it, but they're not going to just let something push them. So there's your boundary right off the bat that I look for. And that's just what I like to hunt.
And now, Daniel, on your side of everything, the wander, finding new ground, different habitat types. You said you started to find a little bit more passion for that more open space. And you can find that in a bunch of different places, but especially like out west. Like we just got back from hunting Kansas, and there's a lot of that. And it's like either wide open or little tiny strips or little pockets of hardwoods, but a lot of the hardwoods, you can look right through them if you come up to the edge of it. And there's something to seeing deer. Because again, it coming from the south, I can kind of relate with what you're talking about, where you go a whole season, especially maybe growing up, sitting food plots, you only saw deer right at the last moment when they're stepping out in that plot or some kind of little opening you're watching. Versus when you go out west, they could be half a mile away, and you can see them in a lot of circumstances. But with you being a little bit more, I guess, more of a variety hunter, is there any, outside of the open ground, is there anything else that you've really enjoyed hunting while traveling or hunting around here, like habitat type, that you found like some of a passion for?
I would say not necessarily river bottoms, but say a river cutting through some more rolling hills. Not necessarily the flat stuff. A place in Kansas I hunted a couple years ago, I killed a big deer in. It was more rolling hills. It wasn't flat, river bottoms. It was kind of like some bluffs right off the side of the river, and I got away from some pressure on that too. I like more either terrain or open ground, open, flat where you can see. But like I say, if it's going to be some terrain, like up Wisconsin, Minnesota, those more bluffy stuff, I like kind of hunting that because you're always like, man, what's over the next hill? What's over the next one? And I don't mind climbing them.
Well, and that's also kind of that hunting style of being willing to check out that, have the curiosity in the back of your head, like, I want to go check that spot. I want to go check that spot. I'm sure you bumped a lot of deer, like anybody has, with curiosity and just kind of pushing the envelope and then kind of readjusting from there. Have you have you figured out at all, like, what's that stopping point for you? Like, get a gut feeling? Or is it you keep pushing, and then you make an adjustment behind there?
No, I've never really found a stopping point I've wanted to get to, because I've always thought that, all right, there could be somebody walk through at any time. If I walk through, I'm not worried about messing it up. But I want to see what I want to find. Once I find it, I'll take my time and plan it out. All right, I want to be here. I need this wind. I need to come in from this way. I may stay in a spot 30 minutes walking around. Look, I was like, I want to find it now. I don't want to come back in here and be like, oh, what did I miss? Do I need to second guess myself? I'm like, I don't mind staying right here in this spot 30 minutes and walking around a 100-yard radius. Once I find the tree, the spot with the wind, then I'll leave and I won't come back till I'm ready to hunt it.
Jeremy, do you do the same thing where you kind of linger in a spot and get everything just dialed before you come back?
Like I said, I want to walk through it and find what gets my attention that'll make me sit in a stand all day. I'm looking for that. But one key I like to say is that I think we both sort of left out a little bit. A lot of it, we look at timing. Timing is the time of the year. You may find this spot, and it's not going to be good, but just a few days out of the year that buck's going to come through there. You may be a week earlier or a week late, you're not going to kill him. That and weather. Timing is what I'm saying is rut and then weather. If you watch any of his videos, he'll out scout 3 days, but he's sitting waiting on that front to come through to catch that wind out of the north or northwest. And he's looking for that spot. And I am too. I sort of do the same thing too, but he'll cover, you'll hear him say a lot of times, I want that 1, 2, and 3 or A, B, and C. And we know when that weather shifts around, odds are them bucks going to be on their feet if we're there at the right time. So that's more what I look at. I think where we were real successful when we can go and we travel. We always call it chasing a rut, because and it varies. We can start north in different areas, just like y'all from Alabama. You know how y'all's ruts from November into January, different parts of the state. Country, same way.
Yeah, and the timing, that's something maybe we can kind of dive into a little bit more. On timing, a lot of guys, when they're making, especially an out-of-state trip, but even just trying to figure out time to take off from work to hunt their local piece of public land, their club, their lease, whatever, in their home state, they try to figure out that 4, 5, 6, 7 day window they can take off work and that's when they're going to go hunt. Talk to me with you guys, and y'all are in a little bit different circumstance, timing-wise, to be able to kind of make your own schedules and make it work, but how important is timing for you guys? Like you're talking about weather fronts and all that kind of stuff. How do y'all plan trips? Like, do you have hard set days, or do you have some flexibility based off weather and conditions and stuff like that?
I think we more or less flex with the weather. Because weather, like I say, I like watching a front and hitting a front. Because what I've seen from places I've hunted, and I can't remember how many states I've deer hunted in now, like 15 or 20, quite a few of them. I'm up there. So, what I've seen is if you have, say, the last few days of October, 1st of November, right, when they're, getting up, checking, cruising, if you have a 180 wind switch, doesn't matter what way it is, more likely, though, a front's going to come in that time of year, you're going to have a north wind. You can about guarantee that's what it's going to be. So when you have a 180 wind switch, and what I really like is a 180 wind switch during the day, middle of the day. Because what it is, what I found is it's a little warmer, say you're getting some southerly winds, and buck's laid up. You find a good scrape line, whatever, some rubs. He's usually not far, especially if you find a good thicket, good travel place. You have a 180 wind switch and a front pushing in during the day, he'll be up and will hit one of those scrapes. Not far from where he's bedded, but he'll be up in the daylight. Because he's been laying there all day with that wind at his, where he's comfortable, laying there comfortable, he can smell everything, see. But when it switches, he's at a disadvantage. So he gets up, he'll go check his scrapes, make his little run. He's not going to go far before dark, but he will be up and moving. So that's, like I say, weather's a big thing for us because the colder, the better, it seems like. So, I mean, his opinion's his opinion. What do you think?
Well, that's true, but it's a lot of the time of the year. I guarantee you talk to them hunting public boards, anybody that hunt the Midwest, and they'll say you get a lot of rut activity or it's more running scrapes last week of October. If it's somewhere, if you get that first major front where he's talking about that wind shifts, you can watch Facebook. You can watch these Facebook groups, and you can see deer start hitting the ground that first front. And then you'll obviously see a little lull. But see, that front, say if that front don't come into the 1st of November, it's going to be then. So if you're talking about sort of planning, taking off and stuff like that, we're at a big advantage because we can sit back and wait. And I think that is one of the advantages that we've got. But I would tell somebody, if you're wanting to do an out-of-state hunt, and if there's any way you can be flexible on, you may have 5 days, but you can wait, watch that weather. You be there a day or two before it hits, so you've got your scouting and stuff, and you know where you want to be. But when that front hits, because most of the time you got a day or two of that wind that's going to be out of the north, if it's a big major front. So you've got a day or two to set that stand. I think that's very key. That's just, we really look for stuff like that.
The Mobile Hunters Expo is coming to Dalton, Georgia, August 8th through the 10th, and this year their speaker lineup is unmatched. They've got Bobby Worthington, Dr. Bronson Strickland, Lindsey Thomas Jr., and Jacob and myself. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you've heard Bobby Worthington and Dr. Strickland on. Dr. Strickland talks a lot about the moon phase GPS data, stuff like that, buck bedding. We've done a bunch of podcasts with him. He's going to be there speaking. And of course, legendary bow hunter Bobby Worthington kind of speaks for itself. A lot of y'all heard our podcast with him last year. If you've ever wanted to ask Dr. Strickland, Bobby, or Lindsey Thomas Jr. a question, this is the place to go do it. The Mobile Hunter Expo, Dalton, Georgia, August 8th through the 10th, they're going to be there delivering a seminar, and then, of course, they're going to open it up for a Q&A at the end. So this is your chance. This is a great place to go and get education on whitetail hunting from experts in the field. There's no other place you can get this kind of speaker lineup. So we'll see you guys there. Dalton, Georgia, August 8th through the 10th, the Mobile Hunters Expo. We'll have a booth right by the seminar area. Looking forward to seeing everybody. To learn more about the speaker schedule, tickets, hotels, parking, all that stuff, go to themobilehuntersexpo.com or hit the link in the description of this show.
All right, guys, we got another in the field tip for you today. One thing we're doing right now while we're out here scouting is looking at overlooked spots and overlooked by us. One thing we always do while we're in the field is using our tracker on Onyx Hunt to be able to not only see where we've gone, but where we haven't been, and that's what we're gonna go look at. So today, we're actually gonna work up into a drainage that we haven't been to before. We've walked all around it, but we haven't been up in it. And again, it's a very important factor of using the tracker so you can see where you have been and where you haven't. A lot of times those places you haven't been is your overlooked spots. So if you want to try Onyx Hunt, you can download Onyx Hunt today and use the code SOUTHERN and save 20% on your membership.
If you want to get a head start on deer season, you can go out and you can actually scout feed trees in summer. This is something we've been talking about on the podcast quite a bit lately. Today I'm out here, I've got a pair of Vortex Viper HDs. This is a great pair of binoculars for this. And what we're doing is we're just looking up into these oak trees, looking to see if we can see the little acorn buds on the limbs. So as summer goes on, it's going to get easier and easier to see those buds as they get larger. A tip for that is when you're looking up in the tree, you want to find a limb that's daylighted. It's just nothing but daylight behind it. You're looking at an isolated limb, and you're just going to want to pick that thing apart with a good pair of binos like these that are clear. I like to use a trekking pole and actually brace the binos on the trekking pole and sit down underneath that tree and really look at it for a while. So if you want to get a head start scouting feed trees this summer, go get you a pair of Vortex binoculars. Head on over to eurooptic.com. Use the code SOUTHERN10 and it's going to get you a discount on these binoculars or any other optics that Vortex sells.
So it might be the off season, but we're still always thinking about whitetails. And if you're looking to get more mobile this fall and you're looking at saddle setups, the two most common designs you're going to see are a single panel design or a double panel design. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. A single panel design is going to be more comfortable right out of the box, while a double panel design is going to be much more adjustable and customizable to your fit. We always say on the podcast, saddles are kind of like boots. Different people are going to like different things. As a general rule of thumb, I found that heavier set guys typically like a single panel more than they like a double panel. But other than that, it's just really a matter of preference. I personally use both of these saddles. This is the Method 2 from Latitude, and this is the Lone Star from Latitude. I will say that the Method 2 is really nice because it's a two-panel design. It's almost like you have a built-in back band that'll take a little bit of pressure off your back when you're sitting down. But if you're just getting into saddle hunting and you want something that's extremely comfortable right out of the box, the Lone Star is going to be your go-to. It has an advanced hip pinch reduction system in it, so right out of the box, this is going to be very comfortable, and you're not going to have the hip pinch issues that a lot of people have when they first get into saddle hunting. So if you want to be more mobile this fall, check out latitudeoutdoors.com to see these two saddles and a bunch of other mobile hunting gear. We've enjoyed them a lot, and I think you're going to enjoy them too.
Yeah, we've been talking about it lately on the last couple episodes about timing. It keeps coming up over and over again with guests. And that's kind of what happened to us in Kansas last year. We got there and we had our date set and we just got lucky because the first 2.5 days of the trip, it was real warm. And then we got like a nice cold front that rolled in. And from that point forward, it was like game on. And it was a really good hunt. And so you're saying, like even if you only got 5 days to hunt, if you could keep it open, maybe talk to your boss at work if you got to take PTO or whatever, but, just say like, hey, I might just, instead of asking off 3 months in advance, it might be the week before. But just get that timing right.
Your odds will go up big time by just being able to hunt them fronts. Well, I know some of you not, but try getting you a job where you can or get you time off. Like I said, work extra where, you got them that little bit of difference. But I do like hunting a little later too, that backside of the rut. You start watching the big deer, a lot of times when they'll start showing up on the backside. I've killed more of the bigger deer in the Midwest at November 18th to about the 22nd. And they was all roaming. They wasn't chasing a doe. They was up on their feet traveling.
Yeah, that's we were talking about YouTube comments earlier. We get YouTube comments from time to time because people are like, well, y'all need to say the exact dates that you're talking about when you're talking about the rut. And I'm like, well, we really can't because, we're in Alabama, like you said. At my house, it might be like New Year's, first week of January, but you drive 2 hours any direction, it's going to be off by a month. It's going to be totally different. So if you were to just kind of simplify the rut as like a roughly 4 or 5 week time frame, you're talking about you like to hunt the very front end of that 5 week time frame or the very back end of it?
Well, we got, what'd you stay on? 5 weeks last time?
35 days.
35 days. And a lot of time we stay gone 3 weeks to 4 weeks. We'll leave that last week, October. We got where we was leaving earlier because we so gung-ho wanting to go. We'd head further north, but you burn yourself out time you get to the end of it. So what do you say your dates you want to plan this time?
I'm probably not going to go nowhere far until 5th of November, 5th to the 10th, somewhere in there. Because I'm not going to hit, I'm about going to have a 2, maybe 3 week max now. 5 weeks was fun, but after 5 weeks, I was hunting a big deer on that last place I was hunting. I mean, a big deer. And if he wouldn't have busted off about 8 inches within a couple days, I'd lost him and found him again. If he wouldn't have done that, I'd have kept hunting. But when he done that, I was like, yep, I'm just going to leave him. Maybe he'll make it to next year. But, yeah, I think this year you're definitely going to hit. I'm going to try to leave a little later and not leave quite so early. But that's not saying I might not try something a little closer. You know, maybe Arkansas or Indiana, Kentucky, something like that. If a good cold front hits into October, first few days of November, I don't mind running 4 or 5 hours hunting, coming back. But as far as a long trip, I'm going to be a little later this year.
You know, now I would say that for some of these guys that's going to go early season Kentucky. The big deer he killed last year, a little front come through.
Oh.
And killed him. I mean, you go ask when somebody's killed a big deer earlier or something, you just say, what was the weather? And what times you look, it'll be a front comes through, and the moon may be having where they're moving in that early evening or early morning. It'll get them up. And most of the time you're going to have to be close to him, though. You're going to have to be close to his bedding. He's not traveling the country. Because that's the difference, I think, of the rut, why we like hunting, we call it chasing a rut. Because I say that 10-day window, you know, he liable to be a mile from his home range or his bedding area. In October, he's going to be 100 yards from that sucker. 200 at the max. So you just got a lot better chance of running across him when he's spraying, you know, he's got a lot bigger path.
That's like what he's talking about weather. 4 out of the 5 big deer I've killed have been on the front. Whether it was, and most of it was right after. One of them was right during the front while it was hitting. Most of them was right after. Like Kansas. When did y'all get to Kansas last year?
13th or something like
Of
that.
November?
Yeah, 14th.
Okay, so later.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, I was in Minnesota hunting up until I think I left there the 1st or 2nd because I seen a front coming through Kansas. I was like, I got to be there. So I drove through the rain, and it was like on and off rain for 2 days. And I walked and messed around, seen deer everywhere. I was like, as soon as this breaks, I got to be in somewhere. I got to be in a tree, you know. And the spot I really wanted to hunt, I didn't get to go there because roads were too rough. Everything was like soaked. I mean, there was like 3 days of nothing but rain. But every time I'd get just a little break, 30-minute break, I'd take off and run through a block and look at it real quick. And it'd start raining. I'd run back to the truck quick as I could. And the place I really wanted to get to was too rough to drive into. I tried it the morning I killed the big deer. Tried getting in there, couldn't get in there, backed out, and went to what I called my B spot and hunted it and seen bucks moving. I was like, all right. Didn't really expect nothing to be there what I killed, but I knew it was a good travel spot. The way the bottom connected to another ridge that dropped over into another bottom, I said, they're going to run these bottoms up, crest over these saddles into these other drains and run them. So I was in a really good spot, but it wasn't my top spot. But after hunting that and seeing that, right after a front, the bucks were up moving. So right after or right during a front has been my best success. Or during the rut, we've both seen this as like 2 days after, a day or two after the front, you catch them up traveling a lot further from where they've been bedded because the front hit, it's been cold, they've been up traveling, roaming. We've seen that several times.
Yeah. Yeah, I like more of that end of the first day, second day, but he gets in a lot tighter. You know, I guess I'm a little more slouchy getting into my areas. I don't take near as much time to, I get in a boat and I get to my spot where now he'll really pay attention to wind, pay attention to thermals, and get in there. But I look at it, I can sit a long time. I used to when I was young like him, I like to walk. Now, if I find a good spot, I can sit there from daylight to dark 2 or 3 days, as long as I'm seeing a few deer. I guess I got way more patience.
The whole timing conversation is so interesting because I think this is one thing that if people pay attention to, me and Andrew included, I think it tremendously will boost not only your sightings but also opportunities. Instead of going gun-ho right when season starts, there's nothing wrong with that. Definitely go out, shoot some does or whatever. But almost burn yourself out by the time when the timing is getting better, you're kind of getting sloppy with your hunting. It's kind of like you're talking about earlier, just on these long trips. You don't have to go on a long trip, but if you're hunting back home, and you have a family or whatever, family, spouse, kids, all that, full-time, your job, you're hunting on weekends, you're dealing with everything else. By the time it gets a little bit later in the season, you could be a little bit just more drained and tired, and also you lost some of the, say, brownie points.
Momentum.
Well,
Yeah, momentum too.
Well, momentum, but
It's
that's
I
for
mean,
them people that's married and
Well,
but it can make it when the timing finally gets good. If you've already used a lot of your time away from family and work to try to go and hunt, you could limit your opportunity and your success. Where you hunted a lot, but it was at the wrong time of the season, especially if you don't have a big window of time that you get to go hunting.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that's super important talking about the timing conversations. Even if you're hunting your home state, your local piece of public land, your local lease or hunting club, figure out when that time is and capitalize on it when you can the most effectively, and then try to get your buck killed there. So
yeah, I think a lot of that comes with experience, because I think he would vouch for this too. When I was younger, I didn't miss open day of deer season around here. But after I got going hunting other places, and I know it don't get good here to Christmas, I've been here before opening day, and we just know it's not. And if you'd have told me that years ago, if you'd have told him that 4 or 5 years ago, he's like, I'm finna hunt open day. But when you know when it's better, you better manage your time. You try putting it. You learn to know when to go. This is the best time. A lot of folks say, I'm gonna go anytime I'm off. Well, if you working that much, do it. But if you want to be a smarter hunter, get you a job where you can hunt at the right time. That's the way I look at it. And that's one thing I say about the better hunters in the country. They're the ones that kill more bigger deer, their job works around their hunting. A lot of folks won't say, well, I can't do that. Well, you're the one that got yourself in a shape of all these notes and stuff that you got to do it. But if I don't care how good a hunter you are, if you're not there at the right time, you're not very successful.
we got to talk about careers real quick. And I guess 3 years ago, Jeremy, when we had you on, we talked about it on that episode, had some good feedback. But just for people that haven't watched or seen that episode, what do you do, or what did you do in order to kind of put yourself in a position to be able to hunt a whole bunch more than the average guy?
Well, it goes back to when I was in my 20s. I've always been self-employed, so let's go from there first. But in my 20s, we got into logging with my dad in a sawmill business, and it was very successful. Well, I sold the business out when I was 26 years old. I didn't do my hunt for 3 years. I was like, I can make a living hunting. Well, it didn't work out then. That's when it was on the Outdoor Channel in 2003. But when I started back logging again. I invested different this time. So I knew, I said, one day I'm going to do this. And to the point now, I ain't got to do it to make money, because I've got my bills paid for. That's why I tell these younger guys, invest in something else. When you're young, put a little bit of money aside for down the road and let it grow for you. Well, I'm 58 now, but I've been basically 5 years. I've been retired. I can go hunting when I want to. I just got back. We got back last Monday. I was gone 17 days. And that's what. But I had a goal. It took me 30 years to be able to do this. And when we got 3 daughters, and they finally got out of school and got out on their own, you don't have any other bills. That's one thing I tell these younger guys and stuff. You got a family, take care of that family first. Go hunting when you can, because it pays dividends. You keep mama happy when you two of you stay together. Like now, Sandy still works. She's got insurance. That helps out a bunch. If she didn't have health insurance, I'd probably have to work a little bit more. But you just got to plan. If you want to do this, you can do it. If you don't, you're going to sit back and make excuses like, well, I can't do that. Well, you won't never be able to if you sit there and say that. You'll find a way. Like you talking about, working for some extra time if you want to. Daniel's, several of his videos, he's tried to tell these younger boys, just sit back a little bit, buy your license, because a lot of these Kansas and stuff, you buy them in the spring. Well, all you got to do is get out there and hunt. You got your license. So, But and there's a lot more doing it. That's one thing I have to say. Us doing this channel, we get a lot of folks say thank you for doing this. But I still get some. I had a guy the other day like, man, I draw Kansas. Can I call you and talk to you? I don't know what to do. Like, holler at me. It's just a step you got to take. It's just one big step, first one, but after you do it, I didn't talk to nobody that's done it, even though they didn't kill nothing. They said, man, I didn't like it. They about all like, well, we're planning for next year. So.
Now, while talking about careers, Daniel, what do you do that gives you some flexibility? Or what's changed?
I do about any and everything. I found out several years ago, as long as you work hard, do what you say, you ain't got to worry about finding work. But I will say I do work for a guy now on and off. It was kind of full-time, but he hunted and stuff. He's self-employed, and I kind of work for him. And he, in the winter, he takes off hunting a good bit, and he let me take off as much as I wanted to when I wanted to. And he's lived here in town his whole life too. So I mean, he's known him. Jeremy took him. Actually, they're both named Jeremy, ironically. But they went hunting together some long time ago. But yeah, he's kept me busy when I needed to be, and when I wanted to be off, I could be off. But I will do about anything if something comes up. I don't have no problem finding work. So I guess in a way, I'm self-employed, but I always got a backup job.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to make this the whole career advice podcast, but that's excellent, man. That's a really good subject, and it kind of reminds me of years ago, I used to work at a sporting goods store at the bow counter, and the guy that I worked there with, his name's Mark. He's still a bow tech, great guy at Mark's Outdoors in Birmingham. But he had been self-employed for a long time, and I believe at the time he had just sold his business, and he went to go work at the bow shop, something extra to do and everything. And I was talking to him about what it was like owning his own business for a long time and then going to work in a retail space. And he said that the most shocking thing to him was how easy it was to stand out if you just try, because most people just don't try. They don't put effort in. And that if, like you're saying, Daniel, if you just do what you say and you're honorable and you work hard, especially if you got a good boss, I mean, you'd be surprised what you get away with, you know,
Yeah.
and that's how you set yourself up.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, if you work hard, he's willing to let him take off a good bit because he know when he's there, he can tell him what to do and he's going to do it. You know, yeah, he's. But I encourage a lot of y'all guys out there or gals that's listening. If you ever want it to be self-employed, man, take that step. It's not easy. You got to take a lot of risks, but the rewards are there. If you get your feet knocked out from under you, you get up, shake your head, and don't make that mistake again, and do it again. You know, you'd be surprised if you just work hard, because most society now don't want to do that. So that's why all these foreigners are coming in here that are doing so great, because they ain't got nothing. They ain't got nothing to lose, but they'll work their tail off. The American dream is here for you. You know, get out there and come up with some ideas of hunting and stuff like that. You know, that's what one thing with Daniel. You come up with ideas when you hunt and what help you come up. You know, help you be a better hunter. So
I think what most of it is people are scared to get started in something. They're scared to take that step. What am I going to lose? I've hit a point here recently. I'm like, you know what? About 5 more years, and I got a lot I can do in about 5 more years, where I'm finna risk a lot, and if I lose it, 5 more years, I'll be right at 30. I can make it back, and I ain't worried about it. So I'm fixing to take a big step here pretty soon that is fixing to either make or break. And if it breaks, you know what? I'll make it back.
I love it, man. Just dust yourself off and try again.
that's right. Especially when you're young, you got the time. You got the time to make it up, and time will go fast. You know, that's what I'm talking about investing. If you invest in the right spot, and I'll say that right now, I've never invested in the market, but I encourage anybody right now with the economy, how it's set up, this market's finna boom. Because I've seen it through the computer age. You know, I've seen it through Reagan. It's finna boom. You know, I would be telling folks, hey, if you got some extra money, put it somewhere. Don't put it in the bank because it's going to lose money in the bank. Invest it somewhere. Go buy land. You know, that's where I basically made my money, is buying, peddling land. through the logging and the sawmill. The logging paid the bills, but the land investments were setting me up because they ain't making no more of it. But I think the market's better than real estate right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, especially younger guys too. I mean, when we were talking about taking the leap to do this full time, we got that advice from some other folks. They said the same thing. They're like, guys, you're in your mid to late 20s. If you screw it up,
That's right.
you're fine. You got time,
Yeah.
and it's been the best thing we ever did. But anyways, moving on from the career. I love that. I could talk about it for 2 more hours. But one thing I wanted to ask about too is y'all, we're talking about traveling around and everything and finding what you're looking for, finding the right spot, scouting and everything like that. I want to talk a little bit about just building up the woodsmanship. It's like a transferable skill. Like if you're in Mississippi, you can find deer, but if you're in Iowa, you can also find deer. Or if you're in Minnesota, you can also find deer. So I feel like that's a little overlooked. And people might listen to a podcast like this and they want the silver bullet of like, how do I go find deer? How do I do this? How do I do that? But to me, talking to you guys, like what you said earlier, Daniel, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking for until I see it. That's like almost a sixth sense that's baked into the cake. So what does that mean to you? Like, what is woodsmanship to you? I'll start with you, Jeremy.
Well, both of us was raised outside. I was raised on a farm. We always had cattle, so I was always outside. And you just learn from it. You pick up. It's a sort of a common sense of things you pick up just for reading. Me being in a log, and I know tree species, so I sort of know acorn tree between white oak and red oak. But you can learn all it. That's one thing I said about these younger guys. Man, it's all in your hand with a phone if you want to learn it. So that's basically what I say. Just get out and take that step and do it.
What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I lived in the woods because I was homeschooled. So I was in the woods every day. Just hunting. I mean, I used to do everything from squirrel hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting. I mean, if it had something to do, you could shoot and eat. I was doing it. Fishing. I mean, everything. But, going and trying new stuff out and kind of almost like back to, what we was talking about, business side, work side, is, people are scared to take that step and go out and try something new with hunting. And go somewhere that's out of their element where it's a lot of the same. I mean, trees are trees. Dirt is dirt. If you know how to read it and understand it where you live, you can read it and understand it somewhere else if you go try it. And, I think another thing, like he was talking about with maps and stuff, I done got to the point now where I can look at a map. I can almost tell the tree species difference looking at the map. You can tell the foliage difference. I mean, everything, if you look at it and study it, because if I'm going through the woods somewhere and I get in a little spot, say a little different type of tree, I'll look at the map. And most of the time, like on X and stuff, it's still green leaves. So you kind of got to look at a green leaf, image. But I can look at that and say, all right, well, this is, say, a block of little white oaks right here, marked. Now, I go somewhere else. I can look for the same thing, different place, different state. It's all about just trying it and getting out there. And like I say, growing up in the woods helped big time, but it is for anybody to learn.
The main thing is be open-minded and be willing to learn. That's one thing I liked about Daniel when I first got hunting with him, and he reminded me so much of me when I was his age. He killed his first big deer over in Arkansas with a bow. What, he was 15, 16?
Yes, 17, I think.
But he basically come back and said, why didn't that deer do that? Why? So you're trying to get instead of showing that big deer, and I killed a big deer, and you ain't got a clue how you killed it. You just, instead of being at the right place at the right time, you're sort of thinking, why did that do that? Why did that deer do that? That's the same thing I say is habitat and woodsmanship. Just want to learn it. Just walk out there and look. Because one thing I look at, if I get in an area that's big timber, since I was in the timber business and the sawmill business, when I see a big old hardwood tree that's got 3-4 logs in it, they grow big horns too. If it'll grow a big tree, it'll grow a big horn. I do the same thing when I go to the Midwest. I stop these farmers and stuff and say, hey, what kind of yields y'all grow? Well, especially before they got all these dang new hybrids that grow so much. And back then they'd grow 200 some bushel in Iowa. And man, around here we grow 100 and something. I like that soil grow big, a lot of corn and grow big horns. So there's another thing you can look for is just your surroundings. If it grows big trees and stuff like, or if it's got poor little old scrubby trees, horns is going to be short with little short points. You know, you pay a lot of attention to your surroundings, you'll learn from it.
And that's something that you got to go do it.
That's right. And you build knowledge. You build knowledge of it. But be paying attention. Wanna be looking at. You know, I've seen somebody post something on Facebook or something on a app or something the other day about how can you tell a stand of hardwoods if the acorns wow a deer like this one more than the other ones. And I remember I was scouting years ago. We're in Arkansas, and I run into a little store, and a guy had about 170-inch deer. This was 25 years ago. And I was like, he said, I killed under an acorn tree. I said, was anything different about that acorn tree? And he said, that was the tallest tree in that stand. He said, I always go in there and I look for the tallest tree. Well, think about it. Why is it the tallest tree? He's probably getting more sunlight. It's up higher. You know, that's just me putting that together. Why does that make sense? You know, a big open-grown tree, you know, it's getting a lot of sunlight. You know, a lot of times you got a good thicket around it. Them are super good trees around the pasture or something. So, you know, just sort of be open-minded, like, why is that like that? Why is that deer doing this? Why is it feeding on this species or this type thing? You know, I think there's no right or wrong answer. But when you start putting enough of that in your mind and you're thinking, and it all comes back down to confidence. If you're confident that when he finds that, you know, like I said, I don't know what I'm looking for, but you're like, that's it.
Now, building confidence is one thing, but how do both of y'all learn from your mistakes to try not to make those same mistakes over? And I'm sure both of y'all have different examples of that, but Daniel, being a young guy, I'm curious from your perspective, especially as you got more into traveling, how have you learned from mistakes?
Making wrong decisions, and a lot of them too were just like a minor decision. I was like, man, I should have seen that before it happened. And most of my mistakes have been more or less on shooting deer. I've shot a couple big deer over my hunting career that I look back and I'm like, yeah, you should have knew that was going to happen before it happened. And really most of that's what my mistakes have been is the, you know, the final moments of it, which is most of people's hunting. I know a lot of people that can see deer and have a chance, but as far as making it happen, that's the kicker right there. There's where it comes into, can you make it happen or can you not? So yeah, that's more or less my side of the mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of you just got to make them and learn from it. Mm-hmm. You know, and a lot of it comes down to shot. And a lot of it comes down, you may have moved too quick. Yeah. You know, that's one thing I've learned with watching this sucker, especially the two he killed on the ground last year. He was sitting there and that deer come up through there and seen him. He didn't move. But he's learned enough that deer didn't smell him, but he seen something. Well, he spooked and jumped out there just a little bit. When he jumped out there, he drawed. Well, it was too late then. That deer, he smoked both of them. On the ground, 9 out of 10 folks wouldn't have made that. Because as soon as they seen him coming, they'd have been trying to draw, and the deer would have seen him, he'd been gone. So, but a lot of it is pay attention, learn how to read a deer by what he's doing. You know, what his body language. And I've learned a lot from him, but just about how patient he is. Because I'm the type, I think I can kill him, I'm finna start shooting at him. Or he'll sit there and wait and let him get in the right spot, and I see that pays off a lot. You know, and you got to learn your experience level. You know, I look at it like ball. There's some kids that they can come up with bases loaded and they 10 runs ahead, gonna hit a grand slam every time. But when you put them up to the plate and they 2 runs down, bases loaded, full count, they knock it out of the park in. They may not have the highest batting average, but when it comes to that clutch situation, they can do it. They can pull it off.
Do you think that's a learned habit, or is that something that's some people are just more inherently be able to handle those high stress moments?
That's more, I think, more instinctively, or you've got it or you don't. You know, it's about like if you can run fast, you can't run fast. You can't teach that. You know, you may can hone it and get a little better, but somebody, you know, that's what I say, he's real good at that. When you put him up in that tense situation 9 out of 10 times, he's finna come through. There ain't nobody 100%. You know, a lot of times if you 50%, you're pretty good. But there's a lot of folks that maybe 1 out of 10 is all they can do. But you gotta get out there and get that experience.
If I was 100%, I'd have a lot more big deer than what I got. And that hurts me to say it too, but it's true. But like you say, you learn from experience.
Yeah.
And mistakes are gonna happen.
What was one of your hardest mistakes or hardest lessons learned shot wise? Because you mentioned like shot execution was one of those.
Would it be the big deer last year?
No, that one doesn't bother me. I think the Iowa one is because he was too close. He was 40 yards. That deer should have been dead. I shot one in Iowa a couple years ago that hit him in the shoulder. Stopped him. Should have shot him walking. Would have killed him. I know it would have killed him. The reason I say that is because I come home. I know if shot execution is something big a lot of people don't like talking about. I'll shoot a deer walking. I've done got to the point. I'm confident enough I'll do it. And I would have had another 160-inch deer at my house if I would have done that, a couple of 2-3 years ago. And I've done that on some since and made it happen. Like I say, that one he's mentioning last year, that show ain't out yet, but I did. Now, that deer, he was a little further out, 40, and I did stop him, and he whirled, and I missed him. It hurt that I missed him, but I'm glad I didn't hit him. I'd rather miss him than hit him. Now, the one I shot in Iowa, when I stopped him, he didn't look at me. He looked kind of like up the hill where he was going, and I shot him and hit him in the shoulder because he whirled on me. If I'd have shot him walking, I'd have smoked him. That one there, that's the worst one, I think.
But it's more so, I guess, lesson learned. Try not to put him on alert if he's if he's comfortable just slowly walking. And it also you got to mention this. You're an excellent archer. Okay, we haven't really mentioned that. You tournament shoot and a bunch of other stuff as well. The average guy maybe not do that. Just it comes down to like your confidence level with what you're doing.
Situational and confidence.
Yeah.
If you know you can make that, and the situation's right, go for it. If the situation's not right, you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. And I know a lot of people that talk down on that, but it's like anything else that, like he goes back to ball a lot because his girls played softball when they was younger. And like he talks about that kid that can hit a home run and confident in doing it, or they can't. It's the same way with hunting. If you're confident in doing that and the situation's right, go for it. And don't worry about what anybody else says.
But a lot of times to build that confidence, you got to try it.
You do have to try it.
You can't sit there and see what you see on TV, and you got to be broadside and standing in the wide open. You're not going to be very successful. Roll that dice every once in a while, but learn from it. If it don't work, don't do it again.
What have y'all learned from shooting just a bunch of deer with bows? Have y'all learned anything that maybe isn't shown or talked about as much on television or any other outdoor media from like a shot execution standpoint or killing deer that maybe is, again, it's effective, but it's a shot angle like quarter and two shot or anything like that? Is there anything that y'all have kind of, I'm going to say test over the years or applied, but had a lot of success doing so?
I think some of the things, like with him, if you shoot a big mechanical, don't shoot that deer in the shoulder, you shoot that deer in the middle of the body. Because big mechanical, you hit him in there, you're fixing to do some damage. Stay away from the shoulder if you can, unless you feel confident shooting through him. With a crossbow, he can blow through a shoulder. He ain't worried about no shoulder. I'll shoot a deer facing me. A lot of people won't shoot one. I'll shoot a deer facing me. And a lot of it is learning anatomy of a deer. Knowing if you're in a tree, your angle's different. If you're on the ground, your angle's different. What way they're standing's different. And, quartering away, man, this could be a whole subject on itself. But, broadside, in my opinion, sometimes broadside shots are potentially some of your less effective shots. I mean, you got your lungs, you got your heart, but what if you barely miss that second lung just a little bit? Quartering away, quartering two shots, you have a lot more chance of catching a lot more stuff. Quartering two, quartering away, either one, just picture in your mind what you're fixing to shoot through. And like I said, that goes to shooting a lot of deer over the years. A lot of deer. I practice a lot on does. That's my anatomy testing and angle testing right there. But yeah, just being able to know in very, very short situations, okay, say a deer comes running in and he's slightly cornered to you, what do you need to do? I mean, you have to think of that like milliseconds to make it work.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Also, when it comes to archery, how much emphasis do y'all put on shooting? As in, or do you all both shoot year round, or like Daniel, maybe like do you shoot year round? Do you kind of pick up the bow in the summertime? Because I know a lot of guys, I'm guilty of it too, kind of pick it up in the summertime and start shooting. But like, what's your regiment for staying honed?
A lot of shooting. I tell you, I have got last couple of years where when I practice it at home and during the summer, I hardly ever shoot under 60 yards. Usually it's 60 and back. From 60 to 100, I can shoot to 115 right now. And what that does is make my 60 and in a chip shot. I'm talking about chip shot. That's just like somebody that shoots, say, 40, 50 their max, 20 is their chip shot. So with me shooting 60 plus, 40, 50, all them, that's like somebody shooting at 20. You know, it's like a given to them. And this year, he's picked up that little bit longer distance shooting. And I think he's done kind of got to that point he understands that further you shoot, the better you are closer up. So if you practice at 100, half of that, 50, that's, you get better at 100, you're great at 50.
You know, the one thing I go back to, you're saying anatomy of deer. I heard, I don't know if it's Keith Warren or somebody on a little clip though, then I tried to hear from him. He's like, there's killers and there's hunters. When that deer's come walking in, you're looking at, what have I got to hit to kill him? You know, they say the lungs and the heart. That don't kill him. We done a little video before, and I had my middle daughter's boyfriend here is an ER doctor. I said, what kills an animal? Or what kills a person? He said trauma, blood loss. You know, so a lot of folks don't look at it. They think, and I didn't think until I got talking to him, I thought if you hit a lung, it's like a balloon, it'd pop. He said, there's 4 compartments to a lung on each side. He said, you can hit one, and he said, the other 3 will still work fine. So, but what you got to do, you got to hit harder in that lung, make him bleed out. There's arteries and veins running all up and down. You know, I shoot one in the rear end, and folks don't like that, but that's a death shot. You hit that main femoral artery on the back end, it's just like a heart shot. You know, but I won't take that shot unless he's turned just right, and I know that's what I got. But I'm looking at that. You know, when that deer's, when he's coming in, I look at these vitals, and them arteries are in one spot. He's got more protection on the front side that protects them. But like you said, you can shoot in front of that shoulder, between the neck and shoulder. He ain't got no protection right there. That's right through that collarbone, and that quartering away, with broadside. But a lot of folks don't, you know, there's so many folks you see on these shows and stuff that get to hunt big places. You know, the outfitters is really one that got doing this. Because I got a story here that's going on elk hunt. Years ago, when I was a guided hunt, I was out there shooting straight on an elk. That outfitter come out there and chewed my butt out and basically said, if you shoot an elk straight on, you gone. Well, you know what happened next day? Freaking elk come in at 7 yards or about 10 yards straight to me and turned around and went right back out, and I didn't shoot him. And to this day, I like, why in the crap did I not shoot that dang elk? Because I killed one years later, 7 yards straight on. So that elk was money to him. You know, they put a dollar sign on it. But you in the real world, it's a little different. I know it's off subject a little bit, but I really want to get that in there. Just know what to kill him. You know, and like Daniel said, all this experience he got with does, you want some experience? Most states are pretty liberal on does. Shoot them suckers and learn what kills them. So when that big buck comes up and he's got about a 6-inch patch is all you can see in the right spot, you lace it right in there.
Yeah, that's such a...
Yeah, I was going to say that that's not something that people talk about very often because, you know, there's going to be some hate in the comment section, 100%. But a lot of the killers that we talk to who have walls full of deer, they'll say that exact same thing. They might not say it on camera, but they'll tell us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've heard about people not liking to shoot a deer face on with a rifle, and I've killed a bunch of deer like that. I love shooting them face on with a rifle, especially if you're shooting something bigger like a 30-06 or something. That's what I grew up hunting with, and man, like a straight on deer, like he might as well be broadside for me.
Well, and go back to his confidence too, is knowing you could put that shot in there. No, don't take that straight on shot 50 yards. You know, they didn't broadside. You get you a bigger target, you got more to hit. But if he comes in there 10 yards, oh, man, lace that shot in there.
Some of this that we've been talking about, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the kind of differences and similarities between you two. There's a lot of similarities, and we're kind of talking about some of those. Another similarity of what you guys do is trying to find areas where there's less pressure or very little to any pressure on public land. I wanted to kind of figure out a little bit more of y'all's mentality on that, and not necessarily just what you're looking for, but how do you tell on the ground, driving around, if there's been pressure in there or if it's a fairly unpressured area? And Daniel, I'd like to start with you, kind of since you like bounce around all over the place. Like, what do you have to find that gives you the confidence that this place is pretty unpressured and there's a mature buck in the area?
Well, you know how heavily, roads are used. Some places you can go, if it's a public area, some places have county roads through them. So the county road, main county road, they have a lot of pressure. But say a pull-off road, it's going to be a dead end. If that's got a lot of traffic on it, okay, people hunting more than likely. Coming in here to a dead end road, because if there's locals or something around here, they know it's a dead end road. They're not going to be going down it. More than likely, unless they're hunting, or if it's somebody from out of state coming and hunting, they're going to be going because they know there's going to be dead end road, public access. I look for that. Tree stands in the woods. How many, and it depends on the tree stand too. Some you'll see it's been there, they grew up, straps are broke, whatever. And then some you'll see been there, been cleaned up, trimmed up. Okay, somebody's been hunting this. Like I hunted in Ohio, I think it'd be 2 years ago now. Went in there, found 2 tree stands, but they had grew into the tree, grown up, vines on them. I was like, nobody's hunting this, and if they are, they're not bow hunting it. They're gun hunting it, because they was in more of a gun area, more wide open woods, not up in the thicket like a bow set. So it all depends on the kind of pressure you find. You can find, like I say, you can find stands. Depends on the shape of the stand. Depends on whether you think whether people could be in there at that time of year or not. Like I say, I found those and was like, this is probably more of a gun, not a bow. I was like, I don't think nobody's bow hunting this. Got in there a couple days later, killed a pretty good deer. Like I say, boot traffic. A lot of times, which is kind of a shame to say, especially for public people, is trash in the woods. How many times I've been go through there and you see a fresh can somebody threw down, or a bottle, or a candy wrapper. I'm like, man, why? Just why? You come out here and you're going to hunt this and you're going to leave it in this shape after you leave, because, that irks me a little bit. But anyway, human pressure, and that could be anything, like I say, from road traffic to boot traffic to, like I said, with stands or with trash, fresh trash, what that's going to be. I try to just get away from that as much as I can. And I'll go to lengths as far as walking in somewhere. And we've got these blow-up rafts. I'll walk in somewhere a boat can't go up a creek, but you can't wade the creek. I look for those a lot now. And when I get there, I'll carry that raft a mile in there, pack it in, cross it, and go over to somewhere, especially if it's a little landlocked block, that the only way you can get in there is cross that creek, whether you carry waders or something. Not many people's fixing to do. Not a half mile or a mile, or sometimes not even 300 or 400 yards. Somebody's not going to go to that extent. I'll go to that extent just to get away, do just a little bit more than what I think the average guy would do. And that's what I think's put me in a lot more, success.
I'll say something pretty simple, a lot of folks overlook. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, public land. Stay away from it opening weekend. Now, if you fish open weekend and you want to hunt, but let it settle down. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, most of the time your local crowd is going to be at work. If you want to be a public land hunter, you need to be able to hunt Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're just, if you don't have a front or something, look for that. The parking lots, most time public lands, you got to have a certain place you park. Well, you can tell if the grass is wore down or if there's tracks in it. But it goes back to, like I said, I probably hunted, 45, 50 days last year. Maybe a couple of days I run into somebody. Because I'm just like Daniel was saying, I'm looking for that place across the creek. I like running smaller boats, so I'm looking for the back of I'm looking for certain things. A boat ramp that folks can't put their fishing boat in because they can't get their big boat in. I get away from people. It's pretty simple. It goes back, you got to get out and learn, how can I get away from people?
And of course, water plays a huge factor in that. And y'all both mentioned water access, getting back away from some people. There's a there's a place in Alabama, buddy had hunted, it's set up like that. He couldn't cross that creek. He had to come in from the access point, saw a bunch of deer, but then ended up seeing more deer across that big creek. It was far enough up, you aren't bringing a big boat up in it, but there's no way to get a big boat to it. It's also far enough in to get to the creek. You're probably not dragging a canoe or kayak. But he had nothing to cross it. He's like, I don't know how deep it is, but it's 30, 40 feet across, and it's cut banks, and it looks deep as, super deep. It's kind of slow-moving water. And it's spots like that kind of makes me think about, like, having the advantage of, like, that little pack raft that y'all use or something like that to be able to slip across. Because have both of y'all slipped across something like that in a one of your pack rafts, got to the other side, and it's like, aha, like you instantly start getting back into some big sign or getting some sign. You can tell there's nobody really going over there.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's just like I said earlier. That's what you're looking for. When you see when people can't get to it easy, the older deer is going to be pushed in there because they can't. They're not going to handle pressure. There's like I said, a lot of it's just common sense. It can be harder to get to, but the rewards are there when you find it.
And Jeremy, you mentioned this earlier. When you get to a spot, you like to drive roads and kind of look at access, and where it really was a lot of access, but also like where pressure is. What notes are you taking, kind of like mental notes, are you taking when you're spot checking it? Because we try to do the same thing, but I'm curious about your method to that.
Well, I just look at what's harder to get to, what takes more effort, because that weeds out a lot of hunters. A lot of folks not going to put a lot of effort out. Now, you get into some of these traveling hunts, if there's good areas, you start getting a lot of good hunters that think like you do. So you sort of got to use a little bit different stock. You look at what style of hunters are there. When I run into somebody in the woods way back, most of the time I sit down and I'm going to talk to them because they think just like I do. But you get away from most people thinking different.
And it's like the more distance, and it's not always distance, how far you can walk, but it's like you said, how hard it is to traverse. There was a spot up in, it was actually in Iowa. This was 7 years ago. I was up there kind of on a work trip, and then we were checking out a little piece of public. And where the parking area was, they had a big, nice mowed path going down this little field that like was the main access, but there was woods right next to it. But there was a kind of like a knockout rose, like just rose bush thicket right there, just nasty. It was probably a little over chest high. I'm like, clearly nobody's walking there. You can't see the parking area. There's nowhere to cross it. But I'm like, I bet you there's deer just on the other side of that. And I can see on the map there's a little ditch on the other side. I pushed through it, got all cut up, got to the other side. And I didn't have a tag or anything. I was just coming out there just to walk around. It was before season came in. Second I got over there, big trail around the backside of that little thicket, but then kept going, and I found this isolated corner of the public right there where 4 properties came together, 3 other properties came together on the public, all these habitat edges, and it was tore up. It was old sign from last year. And this was in September. They started shedding velvet, started having some fresh rows, but had all this old sign, and it's 150 yards from the parking area, but you had to cross this nasty thicket, briar thicket, in order to get over there, and there was zero evidence of people. And then went further out into a marsh and found some other interesting stuff. But so it's not always distance, but of course, it's like how hard does it take someone to get there, and is it not super obvious as well? I love those places where you park at a gate and there's like some kind of path that goes like around here. It'd be like logging roads. They have a gate on it. Everybody's gonna walk that logging road. But if you can go 200 yards down the logging road and find a good little spot to cut off that's not super obvious and get in there and find some pretty good sign, most of the people are going to walk by you because they're going to try to walk further down and then hunt 100 yards off that road. So,
yeah. Or if you got a big hill or something right there.
Yeah.
Most folks not going to climb a hill to get to.
and you're talking about bluffs. Get up over a bluff or around a bluff, dude.
right.
That cuts off a lot of people. Absolutely.
Get your grappling hook and throw it up there.
Oh yeah, I don't mind. I'll do it.
I got kind of a curveball question. Y'all got a pretty big following on YouTube, and y'all got a lot of people that watch and comment, and I'm sure email and call, and you go to trade shows and you talk to a lot of people. What are some questions that you guys get from your viewers a lot? Maybe about like hunting tips or anything like that. Is there any common theme that you find a lot of people ask you guys?
Outside of what state are you hunting?
Yeah.
One thing a lot of them say, what we like about you, y'all just like us. You're just the average person that likes to get out and hunt and work hard at it. Yeah.
That, and I think the next question is, I'm thinking about going out of state this year, and I'm thinking about going to Illinois at Shawnee National Forest. I've had hundreds of people tell me that, and they asked me like, "Well, what do you think? Think that'd be pretty good?" I was like, "Well, you know what, bud? You and about everybody else here has asked me that same question." I was like, "I've never been there, and that's the main reason I've never been to Shawnee." I've got that. That's just kind of an oddball question, but I think at every show that we've ever been to, I've got that question. Somebody has asked me that question. I'm thinking about going on an out-of-state trip this year. I'm thinking about going to Illinois, to Shawnee. Broaden your search a little bit. Illinois is good. There's a lot of other places it's just as good. But yeah, I think, like he said, and that's our two biggest questions.
Do y'all have many people, I'm sure you do, since y'all travel so much and a lot of your content's traveling out of state and hunting public land. What's some of the biggest concerns you have people reach out to you asking questions like they haven't gone on one of those trips? And of course, they're unfamiliar, trying to pack and get everything ready. But like, do you have any common themes or questions that come across of like how they should prepare for a hunt like that you get from, individuals who's never done an out-of-state trip?
Actually, we get a lot of them to ask, but we try showing that in our shows of what we use, what gear we bring, what you need. Like I said, you'll get some of the folks that's so nervous to take that first step that they really ask a lot of questions like that, just basic. And it goes back to like Daniel, they want to know a spot. Where can I go? I'm not going to help you. I can't help you out, but you got to learn. So that's one of the major. But a lot of guys is willing to take a chance. They'll go out and do it. They Shawnee, even as big as it is, there's still some good areas to hunt on that sucker. Because that's why they find it. They want to hunt Illinois. They look it up, and that's the biggest public block on it. So that's what draws them to that. So what else you got on theme or what they add? That's
about on that standpoint. I think a lot of it is, like I say, people are scared to take that step. And we've done it long enough now, second nature to us. So we get asked that question, we're like, well, and like you said, we get asked a lot of where to go. Or what do you look for? And it goes back to that situational. I know what I'm looking for when I see it. I can't really explain to you what I'm looking for, but when I see it, I know.
Well, another question we get a lot too is like, man, I want to do that. I just don't have the time. I've got kids. I've got my job. I don't have time off. And that's just something you got to work on. If you want to do it bad enough, you may not do it next year, but plan 2 or 3 years down the road. If you want to make it happen, you're going to make it happen. When we was doing this years ago, I'm talking about years ago, probably in the early 2000s, we done trade shows and stuff then, and that was the biggest question. Most folks like, man, I want to do this, I just don't have the time. We said back then, no, you don't want to do it bad enough, or you'd figure out how to make time.
That's the uncomfortable truth for that question. Like, a lot of people, oh man, must be nice. Must be nice to go do that. I'm like you said, it comes down to how you set yourself up to give that opportunity. Because, you did it with a family,
oh yeah,
kids, everything, and was able to make it work. And, having your own company, everything really played a huge factor for it. Hopefully maybe inspire somebody, kind of maybe do their own thing as well. But that is a huge factor for it, is if you want anything in life bad enough, you can make it happen, but there's going to be sacrifices that have to take place in other places and change maybe your lifestyle in order to give you that flexibility. Also, one thing I've been really curious now with both y'all on here. I want to know some stories about when it didn't go good. Okay, two things, two circumstances, and y'all kind of go back and forth on it. Stories of bucks that got away. Okay, and I know y'all both have plenty of them. I'm not trying to bring up nightmares for you guys, but I'd love to hear.
Digging up bones.
I'd love to talk about that, and I'd love to talk about just other situational stuff that didn't, other issues that came up. Whether I know, like Jeremy, you had a boat incident, vehicle incident, whatever, like stuff outside of like just the hunt itself that went awry when you were on an out-of-state trip. But I do want to start with bucks that got away. We can start with Jeremy. All right, Jeremy. Daniel's boating you.
I guess that Iowa buck that years ago, probably he's by far the biggest one I've ever seen on the hoof in a tree. Come around, I seen him, I don't know, 80 yards when he come out, and he was facing me, and he didn't look that. He was big. I knew he was a shooter, but he didn't look that big. But he got sort of coming around me, and there was a trail right here, 30 yards. That I've done hunted this place 3 or 4 times, and I knew that's where he was going. But when he got right here, big tree where I couldn't shoot, I could have shot him at 40 yards right here, but he's coming right here. Don't just wait. But when he hit that tree, there was a trail there that I had never seen another deer take that he took and was 45 and away from me. And I shot at him at 50 and clipped him right across top to back. And I didn't get mad. I'm just grateful to see that big son guy and get to watch him probably a minute come walking up there and stop, and he just look around, and I got pretty good video of him. That was probably one that, if hindsight, I'd shot for this side of the tree. That's the biggest buck that got away. That and then that dang Kansas deer I shot right here that I missed him that much. And I knew I shot that much to the right. But it was one of them, if I'd hit my spot, I had him. I knew what to hit, and I hit just a little bit to the right. And that shot coming out the bottom, the guts must have filled that lower hole up. Didn't find no blood. That's probably the two. Because, we talked a little bit off camera on the front side about guns and bows. I ain't let very many big deer get away with a gun. I'm just that. It may be the last round in my gun, but I'll roll him before he gets out of sight. Now, with a bow, I've had let some big ones get away. When I was 18 or 19, I got to go we paid a trespass fee on a Colorado mule deer hunt. And I had as much as I've been out west since then, he was over 30 inches, come to a water hole. And I let that arrow go, and I shot right to the left of him, and I can still see that today. That's probably 3 deer that come to mind that I just choked on.
Before we get to Daniel, was there any good lessons learned from that? Because you talk about the one that took that 45-degree angle after you left that big tree, the real big one in Iowa. It kind of goes back to the patience. Like, you're real patient, but also there's like that fine line of being too patient versus being too aggressive, trying to take a shot before maybe something gets a little bit better. Is there any lessons learned from that people can learn from?
Well, one thing, the wind, I think, is what made him take that trail. Because it was sort of coming in this way right here. And what I learned a lot from that deer that day, because I'd rattled right before that, probably 15 minutes before that, and I had a little buck come in front of me, and he come around this way and hit my scent right here. And it wasn't 10 minutes after that and hit my scent right there. This deer come up just a little piece from it, and what he was doing, he was coming to that wind, but I had just enough that it scared it right by him. But I think when he come on up through here, he stayed with the wind and didn't take my trail. I looked at that more than not shooting him quicker. If I'd knew that wind's like that, I'd probably I better shoot right here, because as soon as he get here, he's finna turn. But but the knowledge of already hunting that place and knowing deer's done come this other trail, I probably done made the same mistake again.
Have you seen that circumstance happen before, that situation happen again, where you see a buck kind of cut into the wind like that in other hunts?
Well, I've learned that I've seen bigger deer since then. That's one thing we're looking for, is that offset. Because a big buck not going to very few times walk with the wind in his tail. Not when he's just traveling. Doe coming in, it may be different, but odds are most of the time, when he gets up out of that bed, that wind, I think, tells him which way he's going. And he's going to be hitting it pretty close. So we really try to find the spots with that wind with something that makes him have to walk out of it just a little bit to where we can get that quarter by him.
All right, Daniel. Ones that got away. You can get emotional. It's okay.
Oh, I'm not gonna get emotional. It might make me mad a little bit, but
That's emotion.
okay. I was thinking about the crying,
No.
tears most people get, but I don't have that. Last year, like I say, this is a hunt ain't out yet. Might not come out. I don't know. Anyway, probably will, but yeah, no doubt, biggest deer I ever shot at. Watched him for, I think I seen him 12 different times. And just had to take my time with it because of how he would come out. The does would come out first. Big open grounds. When I was getting back to big open, I could watch them. And I watched him for several days. And finally, this one day, had a front coming in, just a little small front. And I get down there. I'm like, all right, I'm probably fixing to bust. And it was literally, everything was patterned. 3 does were going to come out to the south from where I needed to be. 4 does were going to come out to the north where I needed to be. There was going to be 2 little bucks and then this big deer. I mean, it was that patternable. So I get down there. Snow hits. Sun's out and it's snowing. I mean, it's just how that front was coming in. That big open country. That's how it can be snowing here and the sunshine at the same time. It's like rain and the sunshine. It's gorgeous. Wind was blowing. And I had a pretty good, he's probably 120s, 130s, 8-point, come out chasing a doe right in front of me. Had him come up to, I don't know, 10, 15 yards, took off. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, completely out of the ordinary, I look in front of me and there's this big deer standing there. I was like, he's out early before the does are out that I was worried about busting. And he comes out, he's kind of paralleling me about 100, 115 yards. So I grunted at him. And he kind of looks. And then he starts walking again. So I snort wheezed at him. Boy, he threw that head up. He looked over there. And I think I hit him with another grunt or two. I can't remember. It's all on the video, I'm sure. I hadn't watched that video back much. But anyway, here he comes. And about his same situation he was just talking about, that big deer. I had a 50-yard trail. I was like, dead, done, fixing to be over with. He comes and gets to this one point, and I didn't know this other trail was there. He hits it and takes it, and it goes pretty good ways out there. But I knew where he was fixing to go. I had the perfect spot. Had to take the shot. Because if I didn't, he was fixing to hit my wind. He was going around south of me, and the wind was coming out of the north going that way. I was like, he's fixing to bust me with my wind, which ain't going to be good, or I'm going to shoot at him. I'm either going to hit him, or I'm going to kill him. I'm either going to kill him, or I'm going to miss him. And if I miss him, it'd be better than him smelling me. Because if he miss him, he hears something, takes off, he won't be as spooked. He gets out there, I stop him, I shoot literally right over him. He takes off running. But the very next day, he come back out. Wind wasn't right, I could get down there. So that kind of built me a little confidence up that, hey, in a way, I made the right decision. Missing him was better than him smelling me. Because if he had smelled me, I guarantee he wouldn't have been out there the next day. And I seen him 2 or 3 more times after that. Last time I seen him, he had been missing for about 2 or 3 days. I felt like he was chasing a doe, done got with a doe and went somewhere. When he come back, he had about 5 or 6 inches of his beam and his G4 on his left side busted off. And I was like, well, I want to kill him, but I might ought to just leave. But he was sure enough deer, though. Big deer. Yeah.
The ones that got away.
Ones that got away. Oh, if I would have killed that deer last year, what you talking
How do you compare to your Kansas deer? Or not Kansas. Well, your Kansas, but your Kentucky buck.
Oh, he wasn't wide like that. That deer's just big framey. Kansas deer's way bigger than a Kentucky deer. But this deer was just tines, beams, points. I mean, he was everything. I was guessing him in the 80s somewhere, mid-lower 80s. Big typical 10, double split G2, double split brows, just 13-inch 2s and 3s, just huge Huge. For a public land deer, huge.
When's that video gonna come out?
Well, we'll see.
I mean, you talked about it. People are gonna want to see it.
Well, hey, it's my footage till I let it out, so I'll decide what I do with it. But yeah,
Have a disclaimer on there.
yeah. If I go back and kill him this year, I don't mind showing it
Yeah, that's what he.
Actually, good point.
because I'm going back.
Maybe hold on
Yeah,
to
hold
it.
That's what I'm waiting on, more or less.
Yeah, let's hold on to that for a little longer.
That'd be a really good show then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a good storyline.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Revenge.
revenge on the one that got away.
Now, also, how do y'all keep deer hunting fun? Because y'all hunt so hard and so aggressively days is what I mean by that. How do you keep yourself in the game? Is it just overall drive, or do you do anything to kind of not break up the monotony, but truly enjoy it, and it's not just always about work and trying to kill a big deer?
Well, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. But one thing I like to say is, like in the summers, I've hunted a lot of season, so I sort of have a theme going into every year, and a lot of it's where I'm hunting. Last year I was in the crossbow. I want to shoot one crossbow, and I really shot my crossbow. But this year the tags I've drawn are gonna be more in that open country. I've been in shooting long range here in the yard. I'm talking. I shot every day except them 17 days I gone. Every day and every morning I shoot, and I've got a lot better. So I like, so about like a marriage. Sometimes you got to change things up a little bit, spice it up to keep it hunting the same way. Don't do the same old all the time. Don't go to the same old places. Just sort of change it up and put a little action to it.
Yeah, before the crossbow, it was a muzzleloader. You was gonna be Mr. Muzzleloader Man.
Well, I did, and I killed a
And
couple.
he did. I would say when he gets set on something, he'll do it till he gets pretty good, and then he kind of fizzles out. And then he comes back, he's something else,
Oh, yeah.
Like a long time, you was a bow guy.
Yeah.
For what, 16, 17, right in there, he bow hunted. I mean,
Oh yeah, I killed some good deer then. Like I said, I get in moods.
he's like a woman. He is just like a woman when it comes to his hunting. Exactly.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not a weapon Pacific. When I get my hands on that joker, it's my satisfaction. I don't care if you're shooting with a gun, muzzleloader, a bow. You get some of these guys that are diehard bow hunters. I'm not that. Don't get me wrong. I like killing with a bow. I like smoking with a rifle too.
Now, also, because you talked about all the different weapons you like to hunt with, when are you going to pick up a spear and go to Arkansas since they legalized spear hunting?
You won't see
Only
that.
thing about that, they're baiting them right under them. That's the only way they're going to get them in there close.
Yeah.
That don't. I guess that feeling when you let that spear go and do it be all right, but that's,
You can be the first one to do it, not over bait.
yeah, that'd be hard. I've hunted enough to, how many times I've been in a spot that I know a deer's going to come pretty consistent in a spot right under me.
Just sit up in the big fork of a tree above a trail like a panther.
It had to be.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to talk about, because Jeremy, we were talking about this well before we started the podcast, was the culture of all of us growing up living in the Deep South, hunting in the Deep South, y'all in Mississippi, us in Alabama, the culture of gun hunting. And you, Jeremy, you had a great point on this compared to like Midwestern states. Could you maybe kind of touch on that, kind of your thoughts on like, again, the culture of gun hunting in the South and how it sets up season-wise versus like the Midwest where, it's a lot more archery specific?
Well, I guess I look at it. I've hunted all over the country, hunted a lot of different states, and I look at how the seasons was set up probably before most folks was born. That's what type of hunter you are. According to what the rut is in your area, what season it is, I'd say 80% of the hunters, that's the way you hunt. Because that's the best time to hunt a deer is during the rut. In the South, we got such a long gun season, and it's during the rut. Yeah, you can take your bow and bow hunt here, but everybody else around you is with a rifle and running dogs. Daniel goes a little bit. Hey, he has killed a couple pretty good deer around here. That's a pretty good challenge because I hadn't done it. I'd sit there and say. But now I can go to Midwest when the rut's during bow season. I can tote a bow just like they can and love it. And that's one that I made a comment like, y'all bow hunters don't understand. Y'all got to get in some real good hunts where gun hunters don't. You can't take a gun hunter and go in the Midwest hardly and hunt during the rut. But then that's why they're big deer in them areas because it's bow season. You don't kill as many of them. So don't sit there and say you're a diehard bow hunter and you're better than somebody that gun hunts. You can take some of these gun hunters in the South, put a bow in their hand, and they can kick some of them northern boys' tail because they ain't killed near as many deer.
That's the difference in killers and hunters.
That's right. It goes back to, I say that, killers and hunters.
I can't wait for comments on that. It's gonna be the north or the south all over. Pick side.
Hey, it goes back. We welcome y'all to come to the South and bring your bows if you want to bow hunt.
And your thermocell.
That's right.
In January.
Thermocell in January.
And snake boots.
We hunted the Delta this year in January, and the mosquitoes were terrible, dude. Terrible.
Yeah, it's like where it's just cold enough where you can be a little bit cold, but the mosquitoes are still out, and you're like, I'm cold and I'm getting bit by mosquitoes right now.
But I did want to mention the whole culture aspect of like, I thought it was such a great point. Like wherever you're born and how the seasons lay out for the rut, that's what the weapon of choice you're going to be as a hunter. So, of course, why the Midwest are so much more, I guess, not maybe more, there's a lot more passionate bow hunters, I feel like, just because if you're going to hunt the rut, that's what you're going to have to use. Versus in the Deep South, like you said, Mississippi has a super long gun season, Alabama's the exact same way, and it's during the rut, so naturally you're going to be using a rifle. So, yeah, I'm glad we were able to just touch on that for everybody.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the northern guys, they never thought about that. Mm-hmm. You know, but that's why I say, bring your bow down here to Mississippi or Alabama.
I will give a little shout out here. I can't believe Working Class Bow Hunter beat us to this shirt, but I thought it was a great idea. They've got a shirt called Bow Hunting's for Felons. Because, of course, if you're a felon, you can't own a firearm. And I was like, that's such a good point, good idea. Because I've joked about that for a long time. Like, so the hardcore bow hunters, I'm like, I wonder if they got a felony on the record. And that's the reason why they're not gun hunters.
Yeah,
That is a good point.
But Working Class, they beat us at two. It's a great shirt idea. But anyway.
That's great.
Yeah, but other than that, I know y'all don't really talk about what states y'all going to hunt, but y'all have some exciting hunts coming up this fall. Any new adventures y'all going on this fall? Anything different from the norm?
yeah, his first hunt's different.
Yeah, my first hunt's gonna be different. Going to Utah for a mule deer hunt. I've killed mule deer before, but not specific. Then I wasn't specifically hunting mule deer. That was in Montana a couple years ago. I was more or less elk hunting, but I had the deer tag as well. Took the opportunity I was presented, you know. But this year I'm specifically going mule deer hunting. So, you know, kind of excited about that. That's coming up a little quicker than what I expected. About, what is it, first week of July? Within about a month, a little over a month, I'll be headed out that way. Month and a half, right in there. I'll be headed out that way. So, kind of looking forward to it.
Is there anything prep difference you're doing for that hunt versus anything else you normally do?
Building my lungs up and running a little bit.
So you put the cigarettes down, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was such a
Or
chain
actually-
smoker.
Or you actually put your vape down. Let's be honest.
Yeah, vape. Yeah, I pounded that thing so hard, you know. No. Yeah, I've never been one of them type of kids. Anyway. Yeah, but no, really, you going from this
Yeah.
level, like even though we're in rolling hills down here, you go from here to there. Even if you are in semi shape, your lungs cannot handle it.
We've hunted in Wyoming, and it was a little over 8,000 feet, and catching your breath thing was one thing. Another thing was just like like a splitting headache from like a little bit of dehydration. I think it was also the elevation change too. I can't imagine like going to elk hunt 10,000 plus feet. I don't know how high you're gonna be hunting, but yeah, it's
Right
Like
in
you
there.
can't catch your breath. It's like you stop and you sit there for a minute, get your heart rate down, catch your breath, and you take 10 steps and you're out of breath again.
Can't walk and talk at the same time.
No.
you got to stop and catch your breath before you say something. But usually a couple of days, the altitude adjustment and that comes around. But yeah, and that's another thing I encourage y'all younger guys out there. Go when you're young. Don't go. All the old timers used to always say, "I'm not going to go till I can afford it." No, if you ever want to do that, put it on your bucket list, and because that's getting harder and harder to do, but it's still doable. There's still some good tags, and I'm hoping we're going to bring a little bit more of that to the channel. I got a buddy out there that's my age. Now he's got a son that's 2 years older than Daniel. I'm hoping to hook them up to start doing, because he's just like Daniel. He's a killer. The hunter is the young boy.
That's what he thinks. he thinks Hunter's gonna be able to outwalk me, but and only like I say, the only thing he's got is living out there in that altitude. But I got a little more drive to be a little better than everybody else. So that's my plan.
Well, you just video it and we'll see, because I'll put Hunter up to you now.
Okay.
Ooh.
You tell him I'm coming for him.
Because them boys, that's all they do is freaking hunt.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, you got your big mule deer hunt that you're getting excited for. Jeremy, do you got anything interesting this year?
I draw Kansas, and I draw another western state out there. That's more of that open country. That's why I'm shooting a little different, shooting, like I said, shooting further distance, and set my bow up. I put these weights and what you call them, stabilizers or stuff.
Stabilizer or something.
Never done that before, but I'm thinking, why does he do this? And it makes a difference on longer. It's keeping your bow level. There's, that goes back to how I keep it interesting. I like changing it up. I like, when you get older, you can't keep doing the same old. You got to change it up and keep life interesting. That's just my philosophy. That's what keeps me young. I look at your age is just a number to you. Get out and enjoy life. Change it up. Challenge yourself. Now, you asked a question a while ago about biggest mistake we made on deer, but then you made a comment about, what else? I've turned the boat over. I've been on top of a mountain before with a freaking lightning storm come through that I didn't know we were going to get off that sucker. I had a buddy with me, and he's like, what we going to do? We was up at the tree line. And, we've seen thunderstorms come through the south there where it's just steadily lightning. You could see this sucker coming because it was just lightning. And then when you sitting there with your eyes closed, and before you ever hear it, you see light. And that sucker's like, and you get thinking, and there wasn't nowhere to go. There wasn't no need. And we didn't have no tent. We had a tarp over us, and we was laying on a tarp. We're just sleeping bags. You won't forget that. But after we got off of it that night, next morning we got up and there was elk right over the ridge here. But there's another storm coming that day. And I asked my buddy like, you want to go after him? He's like, I'd ready to get off this sucking mountain. Ain't big enough shoot on this thing for that. So, think worst case scenario. That's one thing I did a tip on one show or two that think what's the worst could happen to you and sort of plan.
I'm glad you reminded me about kind of worst case scenario stories. You got to tell us the boat story again.
Well, the boat story, long story short, I got up at 3:30.
Got to do long story short. We're on a podcast. I know
We're
on
on
dinner, but
we're on long story time.
I want the details.
We can do the whole podcast on it because it was another one of them days you'll never forget. I left here at 3:30, hunting a place a little hour from here. Hunted before. I got to Grenada, and I forgot I left my life jacket. Swapped boats. Daniel had my boat, and I swapped with him. And I got thinking, I bet he didn't leave that life jacket in the boat because you had to put it in a certain spot or it wouldn't stay in there. Well, it wasn't in there. So Walmart didn't open till like 6 o'clock then. Well, I got to Walmart, no life jackets. That was, I guess it was around 2020 or around COVID, and they didn't have a lot of stuff but seasonal. Well, I drove all the way back home. Long story short, I got to where I wanted to hunt about 9 o'clock. But it was one of them perfect days. I'm talking about, I knew it was the day. Because we got a ton of rain before, and it was like 50 degrees that day, but it's going to be like 20 degrees by midnight. Well, I got way back in there to the place I was at. Muzzleloader. That was a year. I got one of them 40 cal muzzleloaders, and I wanted to hunt to kill me a big deer with this thing. Got in my spot, sat there at about 5 o'clock. Man, I had a pretty good deer come walking up through there, and I just freaking missed him somehow or another. I'm talking about I shot, and he was standing there looking, and he took on. I'm like, I missed that deer. I don't know if he hit a limb or what. I moved a little closer to where he was at because I thought I was a little bit too far back. Man, it wasn't about an hour before dark. Here come a nice, what was it? I don't even remember what it was now, 8 or 9 point. Come up through there perfect. Just bought one of these R5s. These cameras running here. Just bought it. I'm talking about just got that week. That's the first ton of filmed on it. Deer come walking in there 20 yards perfect. Smoked him. Got him. Packed him up, started back to the boat, and it was about dark. And I was about a mile from the boat. Phone about dead. So phone about dead means on X. It was about, I crossed the ditch, and the water didn't come up. And there was a log I had to cross that ditch with a deer on my back, that dang gun. I started to the boat, and I was headed blowed up where I could just sort of track it. Well, I went about 15, 20 minutes, and I come back to the ditch again that I crossed. And I like, man, I'm going backwards. And my phone about dead and it black dark. So I got it straightened out because when I had it blowed up, I was just walking a line, walking my track. But I wasn't sort of seeing where the river was at to back to the boat. Well, I finally got back to the boat. When I got to the boat, I remember that relief. I got it made now. I remember throwing it because I had a deer boned out in my backpack. I remember throwing it in the front of the boat, putting my gun in the case and putting it in there. And my little old boat ain't never give me trouble. I don't know, the river was it was level with the banks. I pushed off, I pulled on the boat cord, and it didn't crank. Well, here I go floating back, and there's a tree laying out in the river, a green tree. Well, the back of the boat hit that thing, and when it hit it, it started turning. The front of the boat started turning with the current. Well, it pinned me up against that tree, and I knew right then, like, uh-oh, because I was holding on to the tree and holding on to the boat. I couldn't move it. And I had that canoe thin. That's a canoe basically with a flat back you could run a motor on. Well, I moved just a little bit, and that thing filled up about a third of the way with water just like that. I'm talking about just, and I was like, oh, man. And that brand new camera was sitting in the front of the boat. And I was thinking, dang, I got to get that camera. Well, I moved one more time, and that boat flipped that quick. And luckily, that log, I grabbed it when I went under it. So I climbed up on it. And I was standing there, I was like, gosh, dang, I got in a mess in a split second. And on that side, I knew there wasn't no creeks, probably 2 miles up, but my vehicle was on the other side of the river. So I knew I couldn't get to it. So I was thinking, dang. Well, I pulled my phone out, my hands were wet, and it was just about dead. So I called a buddy, a game warden buddy that I knew I went to Mississippi State with. So I knew he probably knew the area manager. Well, I called him, he didn't answer the phone. I was like, uh-oh. So I was like, I better call 911. So I called 911, got out, and they said, get help. And I was like, yep, I done turned the boat over. I'm okay. I said, I'm at so-and-so boat ramp. All you got to do is come down the river, because I'm in the river. I'm up out of it, but I'm in the river. So they said, all right, we'll send somebody. It's going to be just a little bit, but we'll get somebody there. So I was like, well, and I'm telling you, I was probably here at the wall, because that tree was out in the river, because the tree sort of went down right here. I couldn't walk it to the bank. So I was just sort of hanging on to the tree with water about this deep. But the limbs were growing up, so I could hold on to it. And like I said, the temperature was dropping. But my adrenaline had toting that deer out. I was all right then. Well, I called my wife, and I said, I'm fine. I just turned my boat over. I done called 911. I said, I'm all right. I said, they're coming after me. But what was bad, she's a school teacher. She taught a boy that graduated a couple years earlier. He was on the fire department. Well, as soon as he heard rumors that it was because they got there and run my tag number, they knew who I was. He called my wife and said, hey, Jeremy, we finna get him out. Well, he scared the heck out of her then. She thought something major's done happened, because I done talked to her, and then she tried calling me back. My phone done died then. So long story short, they finally got down there to me. I was in the river, because I told them, I said, you're not going to miss me. Y'all come down through here. I got a headlight. I said, I'll turn the light on when you get to me. Well, they got to me, and you talking about cold. After I got in that boat, that ride back, they brought a blanket. But, if these volunteer fire department stuff, you better think of me, y'all, because you don't ever know when you might need them. But that night there, I need them. And like I said, I'm pretty tough. I don't ask for help very often. But I done got in a mess that night. And like I said, it happened so quick. So don't, that's one thing about hunting water. It gets you to a lot of hard to get to places, but there's a lot that can happen. I've hit a log in the Missouri River one night coming down through a wide open, that same little canoe. And I hit a log, and it didn't throw me out, but it just about did. But it broke the shack on my motor. And luckily, I always park the vehicle downriver, if you can. I floated down there and paddled and got out. But now if I'd been parked upriver, was going upriver, and it done that. So, I broke a couple shafts before. I was in turkey hunting in what you call it this year and hit something, messed the motor up. So, wheelbarrow and go out. So, the boat's not all hunky-dory all the time, but I've hauled some big deer out with them, though.
And that night you flipped the boat, you lost. Did you lose the boat? or just everything in the boat?
Well, the boat went downriver. I went back a few days later and found it in the drift because it didn't sink. It was like Ganook's fiberglass, and it's got the flotation in the seats and stuff, so it didn't. But I had one of them CVA 40 calibers. What they call them, Paramounts. Lost it. That dang A5 camera. Lost it. The deer in my pack. Horns. Lost it. That footage. That footage is what I want. Man, that's what I go for, the story. So I done a little show after, just sitting telling it, pretty much what I told here now. But that's why I always encourage people, hey, it's always in the back of your mind, what do you think worst case scenario? 99% of the time it's not going to happen, but you better sort of have an escape route that 1% of the time.
And I would say you're a great guy going back to the house and getting a life jacket.
Oh, yeah.
95% of guys would have drove straight there without a life jacket, like no big deal. There's so many people I see hunt off boats, or just riding a boat, period, in the dark especially, with no life jacket on. Guilty. Don't do it anymore after a situation.
I had to get on to him in Arkansas about it.
Yeah, it was a situation.
Maybe I killed me one.
But good on you for doing that. But, I mean, you have a strainer in the river like that with a tree hanging over. I mean, pin you up, sink you underneath, you get hung up, and you drown. With a life jacket, it doesn't really matter in that circumstance. But, yeah.
Yeah, I won't get in a boat because a lot of it I'm running in before daylight and after dark. It's just that life jacket's going to keep you above. Even the water's cold. But, yeah, I encourage folks, wear a life jacket. Especially, you never know. And I'm talking about it'll happen quick. I've got a lot of hours on the river at night, all over the country, and especially high water. High water or low water. Low water, you hit a stump. Throw you out too if you don't watch it. But I say really be careful if you want to make it back to your family now, because it can happen.
Absolutely. Well, I think on that note, I think we're going to wrap up the podcast. So greatly appreciate you guys hopping on. Of course, check out their channel, Do It Yourself Hunter, on YouTube. They're wearing, I'm going to call it the uniform. Shirts on, but we're about to be hanging out at a couple different expos over the next few weeks. So again, great seeing you guys. Appreciate you coming on the podcast. Y'all go check them out on YouTube. And thanks for everybody watching the podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you back on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.